Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. In this part 3 of array, we will learn on how to pass arrays to methods. Recapping what we have learned so far, we have looked at how to declare and create one-dimensional and also two-dimensional array by writing the data type, square brackets, array name equal to new data type and the array size. To initialize the values when we declare it, we need to use the braces. In two-dimensional array, each braces would refer to a row. To have several rows, the braces is separated by comma. That's a quick overview of what we have learned about array. Please go through the previous parts if they still do not make sense to you. Arrays as formal parameters to methods. When we learn about methods, we have seen that we can have parameters in our methods, where we say that those are the local variables for that method. Other than variables, we can also pass array as the parameter. The way of writing it is the same as what we have already know. Instead of passing a variable, we pass in the array. For example, for a method called array as formal parameter that has no return type, which is void, here we have 3 parameters. 2 of the parameters are arrays called int list A, double list B, and a normal variable int num. Suppose we have the following statement in the main method. We declared 2 arrays called int list equal to new int that has the size of 10, another array type double called double num list equal to new double size 15, then a local variable called int number. To call the method that we have defined, we call it by the method name and the 3 arguments. They need to be the same type as the declared method. For example, here, array as formal parameter int list, double num list, and number. If we compare the method header with the method call, we can match the parameters and arguments where int list is list A, double num list is list B, and number is num. The matches are highlighted using the same color. Let's look at this example. Here we have a class called passing parameter. It has an array type int called num, and it has the initial value of 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and 70. We have a method type void called printArray that takes in one parameter, which is an array of type int. In this method, it displays the value of the array. To call the printArray method from the main method, we can write the method name, which is printArray, and the argument that it expects, which is an array called num. This means all the values within the array, which are 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and 70, are passed into the method. In the printArray method, it will go through the for loop and display the value of the array, which is the value 10, 20, 30, up until 70 through the system.out.println, where it accesses all the index number of it. Let's look at another example. In this example, it tries and finds the sum and the largest element in the array. We have a class called array method. In the main method, we have an array of type int called list A and contains the value 11, 22, 36, 42, 15, 46, 27, 48, 19, and 10. In this class, there are 2 other methods called SumArray and index largest element, which will return the sum and the largest index number. In the SumArray method, the return type is int. This method has one parameter called list, which is an array of type int. In this method, it adds all the elements and keeps it in the variable called sum. It then returns the final value of sum back to the caller in the main method. As sum is initialized to 0, in the for loop, it adds 0 and the element in list at index 0, which is 11. So in the first round, the sum is 11. At index 1, the element is 22. So 11 plus 22 is 33. It continues and accesses all the elements within the list array using the index number and adds it to the variable sum. The final value of sum is then returned to the caller. In the index largest element method, it returns an int. It has one parameter, which is an array type int. Within this method, it assumes that the first number is the largest element. It then goes through the for loop and compares the element at index 0 with the element at index 1. In this code here, if we go through the loop, it checks the value 11 and 22. As 22 is larger than 11, it changes the max index from 0 to 1. Within the for loop, it increments the value of index by 1. So now it checks list at index 1 with list at index 2, which is 22 and 36. It changes the max index from 1 to 2. It continues to check at index 2 and index 3, which is 36 and 42. Max index becomes 3. On the next round, index 3 and index 4, which is 42 and 15. Max index remains 3, as index 4 value is less than 42. It continues until the end of the array. Then, it returns the final max index value to the caller in the main method. Here is showing the complete code of the array method class. In the sumArray method, it returns the sum, and in the main method, it is kept in the variable called total. Index largest element method returns the max index, and in the main method, it is kept in the variable called int largest. If we run this code, the output that we will get is the sum of list A is 276 and the largest element is 48. All these examples within this set of slides are similar to what we have seen in the methods topic. The only difference is here we are passing an array as the formal parameter. In this search method, it will find within an array of integers the location or index of the search value. In the method, it goes through all the elements, and if it finds the element with the same value of the search value, it gets the index number and returns it to the caller method. For example, if we have an array type int called num and it has the value 10, 20, 30 up until 100, to invoke the method, we will write search num, which is all the elements in the array, and the search value, which is 60. The method returns the index number of the element that has the value of 60, which is index number 5. The index value 5 is then kept in the variable called index. How to display all the elements in an array in the reverse order? In the reverse order method, it takes in an array as the parameter. Using the for loop, it will loop through the last index number of the array and decrement the value until the first element or index number 0. Remember here that when we refer to the size of the array, we cannot use the size straight away as the last number of index. It will give us an error, index out of bound, so we have to do item.length minus 1. Item.length minus 1 refers to the last index number in our array. When we run the code, it will ask the user to enter 10 integers number. Try and run it and see if it displays the input in the correct reverse order. We can also write the methods to search and edit a value in our array. PrintArray method here displays all the elements in the array. PrintArray has no return type, so it is void, and it takes in one parameter called number, which is an array type int. Because it does not return any value, within this method, it has the system.out.println within it, so that it can display the value of the number. We have another method called editValue. In this method, it has void as the return type, and it takes in two parameters. The first one is an array called num, which is type int, and another one is int search value. In this method, it goes through all the elements in the array called num and finds the element that has the same value as the search value. When it finds a match, a new value will be reassigned to it. For example, num_i equal to 65. If you see here, we have a boolean called edit that initially has the value of false. Once it finds a match, it changes the edit from false to true. It then breaks out of the for loop when it finds the match. So, for this boolean edit, that means if it cannot find a match, the value of boolean edit will always be false. So it will display the search value is not in the list. Otherwise, this if statement will not be executed. What if we want to remove a value from the array? Here we have a class called ArrayMethod3. It has two methods called printArray and deleteValue. In deleteValue method, the return type is boolean, meaning that it can either be true or false. It takes in two parameters, which are an array type int and an integer as the search value. In this code here, it tries to find the value 100 from the num array that is passed to the deleteValue method. It goes through the for loop and using the if statement, when it finds it, it shifts the element in the next array to the previous. As the element 100 is the last index, it does not make any difference in this code. Say that we want to search and remove the value 10. So we have boolean delete equal to deleteValue item, 10. In the deleteValue method, when it finds the value 10, it goes through the for loop where it does num_j equal to num_j plus 1, which is basically shifting the value from the next index to the previous index, so that the value 20 will now be at index 0, value 30 at index 1, and so on. If we do not shift it, when we access index 0, it will still show the value 10 as previously. What we are doing here is removing the value from the array. The array size is still the same as before, which is 10. We cannot shrink or resize our array on the go or dynamically. There is, however, a way to do it, which is by using ArrayList. We do not cover about ArrayList in this subject, but you can read it on your own if you are interested to know more. Referring back to the code where we remove 100 from the array, can we still access it? Here, within our if statement, we see that if delete is equal to true, meaning that we have deleted a value, the size of our array will become item.length -1. We pretend that our array size is less than before, which is 9, not 10 anymore. But if we try to access item at index 9, it will still display the value 100. This is because when we create our array, we have defined the size of it. So the size of the array cannot be changed. The array can still hold 10 values whether we use those 10 components or not. This basically means that we do not want our code to access the last element in the array. But even if it accesses it, there's no error at all. Only that it is the logic error in our code. This slide here shows the complete code. When we run this code, it will display the value 10, 20, 30 until 90, where the value 100 has been removed. What if we want to return the whole array instead of just one value? Let's look at this example where we have a class called ExampleArray. Here we have public static int array method1 int n1. So it returns an array and the parameter is also an array. Because the return type is an array of int, the return statement should return an array of type int. Here, it returns an array called am1. In the main method, when we call method1, the array value that is returned is kept in an array called myArray. So when we run this code, after it calls method1 and pass in myArray, which is the whole array, we have the for loop to display the values of myArray. It will display 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10 because in method 1, we multiply the initial value of myArray by 2. When method 1 returns the value to the main method, it replaces the value of myArray. MyArray is no longer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but instead it has become 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. This is highlighted in blue here. We then invoke another method called method2 and pass in the array called myArray as the argument. In method2, the return type is void. The method has a system.out.println which will display the value of the elements multiplied by 2. So it shows 4, 8, 12, 16, and 20 as the output. Say that in the main method, we want to display the value of myArray again. What do you think will be displayed? Does it display 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, or does it display 4, 8, 12, 16, and 20? It will display 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 because in method 2, we simply multiply the value of myArray with 2 and we do not replace the value. Even if they are to replace it, it will give us an error because myArray is a local variable within the main method. If myArray is a static variable, meaning that we declare it just below the class name, then it could have the value 4, 8, 12, 16, and 20. Please go through the video where we talked about local, instance, and static variables to refresh your memory about variables. We will learn more about it in programming too. To summarize, in this part we have learned about passing an array as the parameters and how to pass an array as the argument when calling the method. We have also looked at examples of methods that have array return type, for example here, returning an array of type int.